Hey guys, RJ here, and we are on episode 2 of Silicon Valley. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Season 4 is probably going to be a huge hit for me. I love this show. I love the awkward humor. They're delivering it perfectly. This is the Silicon Valley I knew and fell in love with. Let's dive into our episode 2 review of Silicon Valley. This is my usual line on my channel, guys, but if you have not seen episode 2 of season 4 of Silicon Valley, please turn this review off, go watch it on HBO, then come back here. I don't want to spoil anything in the show. With that out of the way, let's just talk about this episode. I did not expect the Dinesh crash and burn to happen so quickly. I love the way that they kind of set it up for, like, at least in the preview of this episode, I thought like, oh wow, we're going to get a couple episodes of douchey Dinesh, and that's what I'm going to call it for now, is douchey Dinesh. And well, that really didn't end up being true. We got like 8 minutes of it pretty much. So the beginning of this episode is basically, like Richard's in his room, concocting a new internet. And, he basically starts bishing. Him and Dinesh start going at it. And he's complaining about the fact that he doesn't have access to their systems anymore. And Dinesh is like, I did that on purpose. And I love the back and forth between Richard and Dinesh, because obviously Dinesh has all this power now and he's power hungry. And yeah, I mean, obviously that leads to his demise, but just like the back and forth, like where Richard makes fun of Dinesh's coat, and like, yeah, I'd love to look like a douchebag. So after Richard's bitching about Dinesh, Big Head ends up giving him credentials into the system because he kind of agreed with the way Dinesh was acting. And so yeah, Richard gets in, ends up finding something very troubling with their user data. He ends up trying to tell Jared. Jared doesn't want to listen, and there's like some good back and forth there about like, we work at this company now, you're not involved, we can't tell you anything. And Richard's like, yo, you need to look at this. We then get the return of one of my favorite characters in this series so far, and that is Pete Monahan, the lawyer from the previous seasons. And we get him at a car wash of all things, and he's like finishing up the bodywork on this Kia. I just love that Jared and Dinesh show up and they're like, what the hell is this about? And Jared's like, you probably want to sit down for this. And it ends up being the name of this episode, which is Terms of Service. And this is a real thing. Like, this is not made up. This is very accurate to real life. You have to have a terms of service if you're going to publish something on an app store or something like that. It's what we're all clicking next during in those instructions at the beginning of an installation. And yeah, Dinesh pretty much admits, like, I did not do that. And we end up finding out that the majority of the users for Piper Chat are little girls and older men. So obviously we can see where things would go awry. And we end up finding out that each violation is actually finable up to $16,000, which makes Piper Chat worth a beautiful negative like 21 billion. For pretty much the rest of the episode, after we see Guilfoyle gloating the entire time at Dinesh, saying like, I knew you were going to fail, I just had no idea it was going to be this soon, and he's just enjoying a nice glass of champagne. He's soaking in every single bit of it. I love their humor, I love their back and forth between him and Dinesh. And yeah, I love that. So we end up getting eventually Dinesh and Richard in the bathroom. Dinesh is like hiding in the bathtub. And I like the fact that Richard is kind of like trying to console him, like, hey, I've been here, I've seen some of these things. Like, and I think that this is supposed to be a very important time for Richard, because I think this is going to be another example of where he's learning what not to do as a CEO. Because if he does end up doing this internet thing and it maybe works, hopefully he learns upon the lessons of the failures that he's had so far. And hopefully he learns from Dinesh's failures. Dispersed throughout this whole episode, we get this amazing back and forth between Jack Barker and Gavin Belson again, and Gavin's basically just trying to outsmart him again, even though he's already sent him to the data center downstairs. I just love that, like, this still isn't over yet, and Gavin once again is just kind of losing his mind trying to manage this gigantic company, and you have Deepak and Hoover trying to convince him to do things, and of course he ends up trying to figure out what exactly Barker is up to, but he does it in the stupidest way. He ends up buying, or not really buying, he ends up stealing Piper Chat from Dinesh. He invites him to the same place he invited Richard for the buyout. And I just love the fact that, like, Dinesh even tries to tell him, like, don't buy this, you don't want to do this. And obviously Gavin is not listening to any of that. And we end up seeing at the end of this episode, which is just a perfect way to end this again. They have the focus group going. The guy is reading through all of the names. And then you see the one creepy guy in the back and then all of the preteen girls throughout. And Gavin, like, immediately knows that what he bought was a terrible idea. I am guessing this is going to basically crash Hooli in some form or fashion, because the company's worth like, negative $20 billion. so I guess we'll have to see how many financial reserves Hooli really has. But yeah, just the play with Gavin Belson and Denpak and Hoover and pretty much everyone else around Gavin Belson throughout this episode. I like the way that they've kind of mixed things up for him this time, and we're not on the same old team of the Hooli chat team that we saw before. So I do like the way that they're structuring that stuff and just dispersing it throughout the episodes. And the cherry on top of the sundae that is this episode, I love the Erlich and Jin Pang stuff. The fact that pretty much Erlich thinks that he's building an app for Oculus and that it's going to be, you know, like another huge success, just like Piper Chat that he believes at the beginning of this episode. He ends up even giving a year free away for rent for Yang to stay at the house. And pretty much this ends up being a massive troll because he created an octopus app, not an Oculus. I thought that whole thing was delivered perfectly. It kept me in suspense, like, what is he building? And then we just end up learning at the end. Like, I knew something was going to go wrong. I just didn't know what. And the octopus Oculus stuff, that was perfect. I'm glad they hit on VR within tech because it's becoming so big. But yeah, I thought that was a beautiful play. And Erlich once again gets screwed. Well, that is pretty much it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. Give us a like if you like this video. If you want to see more, subscribe to us here on YouTube. We also have a bunch of social media links down in the video description if you want to follow us there. And just some closing words. I love this show. Silicon Valley is fantastic. If you are interested in tech or science or humor at all, especially Mike Judge humor, just go ahead and watch this show. Do yourself a favor. It's one of the best shows on television. I think it really gets the millennial age in general. So let me know your thoughts and theories down below in the comments. And until next time, guys, we'll see you soon.